Some stories begin with thunder, some begin with fire, but this one begins with silence. The hush before dawn, when mist drifts over rice fields and the land seems to breathe in its sleep. In that quiet, a voice would rise, not loud, not angry, but steady and kind, like a teacher speaking to his children. That voice would guide a nation through war and hunger, through exile and hope. It would belong to a man who called himself Ho Chi Minh. To his people, he was Uncle Ho. To history, he became the man who shaped Vietnam's destiny. This is not a story of battlefields alone, but of a heart, soft, steadfast, and forever bound to the dream of freedom. The roots of the dream. Our story begins in Kim Lien, a small village in central Vietnam, where the air smells of earth and lemongrass, and the hills roll like sleeping dragons. It was May 19th, 1890. A child was born to a modest family. His name was Nguyen Sinh Kung. His father, Nguyen Sinh Sak, was a scholar and teacher, a man of wisdom but also of quiet rebellion. He believed that true learning was not memorizing words, but understanding justice. His mother, Hoang Thi Loan, was gentle, graceful, and strong in the quiet way of mothers. She sang old lullabies and spun thread by the glow of lamplight, her voice wrapping love around her children like a warm blanket. From them, the boy learned both tenderness and resolve. He would later write, "My mother's lullaby taught me kindness. My father's eyes taught me truth." The family lived simply, books instead of wealth, principles instead of comfort. But even as a child, Kung saw what others tried not to see. Foreign soldiers walking their soil, farmers bent under unfair taxes, the distant eyes of those who had forgotten what freedom felt like. He asked his father, "Why must we bow before others?" And his father said softly, "So that one day you may teach our people to stand." The journey begins. In 1911, the young man left home. He was barely 21, thin, curious, his eyes filled with the horizon. He took a job aboard a French steamer, the Amiral Latouche Treville, as a kitchen assistant. A small role, but for him, the beginning of everything. He carried little, a few clothes, a notebook, and a heart full of questions. As the ship pulled away from Saigon, the shoreline of his homeland faded, and with it, the comfort of belonging. But he whispered to the wind, "I will return, and when I do, Vietnam will be free." The sea was his first teacher, vast, humbling, and full of stories from faraway lands. He saw Marseille, London, New York, and Algiers. He saw workers covered in soot, children begging on the streets, and nations that spoke of liberty, yet still held others in chains. He washed dishes in hotels, swept floors, and read newspapers discarded by guests. Each page taught him something about power, about pride, about the many faces of injustice. He saw that poverty was not only Vietnamese, it spoke every language, and he began to dream, not just for his homeland, but for all who lived under the weight of empires. He learned languages, French, English, Russian. He read Marx, Lenin, Jefferson, Voltaire. He studied revolutions, how nations broke free, how words could move mountains. And in the quiet corners of cafes, he began to write letters, essays, ideas, signing them Nguyen Ai Quoc, meaning Nguyen the Patriot. The pen and the cause. Paris, 1919. The Great War had ended. The world gathered at Versailles to speak of peace. Nguyen Ai Quoc was there, not as a leader or diplomat, but as a humble voice for the colonized. He wrote a petition, the demands of the Annamite people. He asked for simple things: education, fair trials, equal rights, representation in government. He did not ask for riches or revenge, only justice. But no one listened. The petition was ignored. Yet, that silence was not defeat. It was awakening. He realized then that freedom is not granted by the powerful. It is claimed by the united. From that day, he dedicated his life to one purpose: Vietnam's independence. He joined movements, met workers, students, dreamers, men and women who carried fire in their hearts. He became a teacher of revolution, not of hate, but of hope. In 1930 in Hong Kong, he founded the Communist Party of Vietnam. He told his followers, "Our path is long and hard, but our hearts are light with purpose." He was arrested, imprisoned, exiled. In a Chinese cell he wrote poems, fragile, luminous, filled with peace. The moonlight slips through bars of steel, yet still it bathes my face. The body is bound, but the soul walks free. Even in chains, he remained gentle. He forgave his captors, spoke kindly to guards, and shared his food with fellow prisoners. Because for him, freedom was not only political, it was spiritual. It was the freedom to never let hatred take root. The Mountain and the Star. It was 1941. The world was at war again. Japan occupied Vietnam. The French colonial government faltered. Deep in the northern mountains, a man returned after 30 years abroad. Thin, weary, but with eyes bright as dawn. He now called himself Ho Chi Minh, he who enlightens. He lived in a cave in Pac Bo, writing by candlelight, eating forest herbs, drinking from a stream he named Lennon Creek. He taught villagers to read, organized guerrilla groups, and whispered of unity. "We may be poor," he said, "but our hearts are rich in courage. We may be small, but our dream is vast." He founded the Viet Minh, the League for Independence, a movement of farmers, teachers, monks, all bound by one word: freedom. For 4 years they worked in shadows, through hunger, rain, and fear. But the flame did not die. Then, in August 1945, Japan surrendered. The moment had come. From village to village, the people rose, waving red flags, singing songs of liberation. In Hanoi, on September 2nd, before a sea of faces, Ho Chi Minh stepped onto a simple wooden platform. He looked upon the crowd, young and old, barefoot and brave, and began to speak. All men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, the right to life, liberty, and happiness. The words were borrowed from America's Declaration, but that day, they became Vietnam's heartbeat. Tears fell, hands reached upward, and for the first time in centuries, Vietnam breathed as a free nation. The long shadow of war. But freedom's dawn was followed by a long, cruel storm. The French returned, refusing to release their colony. War erupted. Villages burned. Fields turned to ash. For 9 years, Ho Chi Minh led his people from hidden forests. He wore no medals, slept on straw, and shared rice with soldiers. He said, "The enemy is strong in weapons, but we are strong in heart. They have tanks, but we have the people." In 1954, after endless hardship, the Vietnamese won a victory that echoed around the world. Dien Bien Phu. The French surrendered. The nation was divided, but independence was near. Still, the peace was fragile. The Cold War cast its shadow, and soon new powers came. First advisors, then armies, then fire raining from the skies. Ho Chi Minh watched his beloved country torn once more between North and South. He was older now, his beard white, his body frail, but his spirit unbroken. He told his people, "I do not wish for rivers of blood. I wish for peace, for children to go to school, for farmers to plant without fear." His dream was simple, a united Vietnam, free and whole. He would not live to see it, but he never stopped believing. The teacher's last lesson. On September 2nd, 1969, exactly 24 years after the Declaration of Independence, Ho Chi Minh passed away. The city was silent. Even the rivers seemed to pause. Old men wept. Children bowed their heads. Farmers lit incense beside their fields. He had left behind no mansion, no treasure, no crown. Only a small wooden house beside a pond in Hanoi. Modest, peaceful, full of sunlight. There, visitors can still see his desk, his sandals, his simple teapot. He lived as he taught, close to the people, humble in every act. His last will was not political, it was human. He wrote, "If I must go, let the people plant trees where I rest, so that children may sit in their shade. I have no greater wish than to see my country peaceful and happy." He was gone, but his dream endured. 6 years later, in 1975, Vietnam was united. The land he had loved was finally whole. The light that never fades. Today, in Hanoi, his mausoleum stands in the heart of Ba Dinh Square. Thousands come each morning, farmers, students, travelers, to stand quietly before him. Outside, children play by the lotus ponds, and the air smells of incense and rain. His face smiles from posters and statues, but more than that, his spirit lingers in the everyday kindness of the people. In a teacher sharing her meal with a student, in a worker helping a stranger, in a mother humming an old lullaby, you can still feel Uncle Ho. He once said, "Love your people as you love your own children. Live simply, think clearly, and never forget who you serve." That, perhaps, is his greatest legacy. Ho Chi Minh's life was not a straight road, but a winding path of sacrifice and patience. He showed the world that power can be gentle, that freedom can grow from compassion. His voice, though quiet, still echoes through the bamboo and the cities, through laughter and prayer, reminding us that the dream of independence is not born of anger, but of love. And if you listen closely, in the wind that moves through Hanoi's trees, you may still hear him say, "Nothing is more precious than independence and freedom."